Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Artisan Pirate here, and in today's fun video, we are back in the model train / nostalgia room to talk about books. More specifically, recent books that I have read in my collection and picked up along the way. We are still in those cooler and colder months here in Burlington, North Carolina, in my area, and I thought it would be just a nice idea to hop on here and talk about some of the books that I have recently completed. Please keep in mind, I only have 8 books to talk about here in today's video. I am not a speed reader. I wish I was. I'm going through my Stephen King collection currently, and some of those books are 6, 7, 8, sometimes 900 pages in length, and it just takes me some time to get through them. And I'm one of those people that like to read at night before going to bed. You know, before I go to bed, I like to pick up the book, get at least 15 to 25 pages in, maybe a few chapters, whatever the case may be, before putting the bookmark in, closing the book, and laying my head down, hopefully for a good night's rest. In 2024, I read 11 books from January to December, and already I am currently reading books continuing into the new year. So really neat. In fall of 2024, if you guys remember, I made the custom bookends for the Dark Tower series by Stephen King, and I followed that up with my very first book video where I talked about the epic Dark Tower series itself and held each of the books up in quick succession, which is what I'm going to be doing in today's video. But in that video, you guys responded very positively to that and said that you reached out to me through social media, through private messages and emails, said that you guys would like to try and go on the journey to the Dark Tower for yourselves for the very first time. And I hope you guys are enjoying that journey. It is an epic trek to the Dark Tower, and it is a great journey from start to finish. And if you elect to reread the series after you're reading it the first time, you pick up more tidbits and references each time, and it's probably a series I could read over and over again, potentially without ever even getting bored of it. So really, really cool. I've told this story on the platform before, but you guys know I had taken about a decade off of reading, and I'm sad to report that. The bookshelves in my room had about an inch of dust on them because they had been very neglected. I had just got so busy in life that reading kind of fell on the back burner. You know, it wasn't as important to me as it was in my middle to late teenage years, you know. So my mom got from me in summer of 2023 for my birthday's in late July, the original Jaws book by Peter Benchley, released in 1974, and I've got a little cheat sheet here on the train table in front of me with dates and references, but she got this book for me for my birthday. Thank you, Mom. Love you so much. And I originally just put it up on my shelf with my other little Jaws merchandise and memorabilia. I'm a huge fan of the movie. You guys have seen me wear the Jaws shirts in previous videos, and we've even done the Jaws poster over on a previous scroll saw video that I designed. But I had never read the book from start to finish. And again, when I got the book, stuck it up on the shelf, and for whatever the case may be, one night I could not sleep. I was tossing and turning. I got up, turned the light on, seen the book sitting there on the shelf. I read 1 page, 2 pages, 3 pages, and before I knowed it, I was about 3 chapters in, and I'm like, man, I really love reading. I really miss doing this, you know. But then I was off to the races, and I quickly read the book, and there's so many differences as opposed to the actual movie that came out by Steven Spielberg. Again, I was a huge fan of the movie, but I'm now happy that I have read the original book released in 1974, well before I was even thought of. And because I like collecting things and I'm a collector, I would like to have this book in a nice first edition hardback version, if that could be a possibility, you know, just because I like to collect things and would like to have it on the shelf. But after I read the Jaws book, I still had that itch and desire to read, so I did then clean off my personal books in my collection, got all the dust off of them, and I picked up The Eyes of the Dragon. Now, in my middle to late teens, I discovered Stephen King for the very first time. At that point, I had read, and reread the Harry Potter series to the point where my paperback books were falling apart, and my family finally just got me a nice hardback edition set of the Harry Potter series. As a matter of fact, for Harry Potter, I went to books 5, 6, and 7 release parties because it was a worldwide phenomenon. They released the books at midnight, and I remember going to the Books A Million at the time. It's no longer there at the mall, and celebrating those release parties with Harry Potter fans. But then I wanted to try a new author, and Stephen King was recommended to me, and this was the very first book by him I read. This is my original Stephen King book, and it's very well loved, very well worn. You can see I have gotten the covers taped to it, and this is another book I'd like to have a first edition copy of. But this book here is also based in a medieval and fantasy world that Stephen King offers, so I was really drawn to it, you know, coming right off the Harry Potter series. But it focuses on Peter, who is the rightful king of the Castle Delane in the Kingdom of Delane, but he has been thrown off his course and captured and placed in the tower in the middle of the town by the dreaded wizard Flag. And if you guys are wanting to read the Dark Tower series, I highly encourage you to read this book first, because it really tells Flag's backstory and how he came to be, because Flag plays a major factor in a lot of Stephen King books, and he's a big character in the Dark Tower series themselves. But it's not a very long book. But after getting this book out, dusting it off, and reading through it going into the winter of 2023, I knew I had to take the journey to the Dark Tower once again, and I'm so happy that I did. Again, it's just such a great series. But after completing that, I wanted to continue to find the hidden references for all of Stephen King books that tied back into the Dark Tower series. And I also wanted to read something newer by Stephen King that I had never ever read before, so I'd have a totally new experience. So I went to the local McKay's. It is in Mebane, North Carolina, up near the Mebane train display where I volunteer at and go and we run the trains at. But it is a huge multimedia used store. They have used books, they have vinyl records, they have CDs, they have toys, they have collectibles, they have instruments and video games. So I went up there and picked up a first edition copy of The Institute. This book was released in 2019, and it focuses on young Luke Ellis, who has telekinesis powers, and that is the theme of the book. The Institute, the evil people that run the Institute, are capturing people, young people, and taking them to the Institute to use their telepathic and telekinetic powers to conquer what they want to do out in the big wide world. They're trying to amplify the powers and use them in evil ways, but young Luke finally has enough of it, and he escapes the Institute, and he seeks refuge in a small town, and then they band together to take down and end the Institute once and for all. But a really cool book by Stephen King. It's a little over 400 pages in length, and it's actually a book that they are turning into, I think, a 6-episode series. So I'm happy that I read the book so I can watch the series and enjoy it when it comes out on television. But I followed that book up with Revival. Also got this one at McKay's. It come out in 2014, and this book here is not even 400 pages in length, but it is a very good book. And a lot of people on the Stephen King fan sites that I'm now on, that I'm currently fully wanting to complete the Stephen King collection, say that this is one of his more creepy books. I don't agree. It's just a very good book from start to finish. It focuses on young Jamie Morton and the Reverend Charles Jacobs, and at the very beginning of this book, it covers 5 different decades throughout the course of the book. In the very beginning pages of the book, the Reverend Charles Jacobs has a tragic accident happen to him, and he loses his faith. So please keep that in mind as you read throughout the book. And Jamie, who you are reading the story through his eyes, keeps bumping into the Reverend throughout his life, and he finds out that the Reverend has an eccentric love for electricity, and he is trying, keep in mind he's lost his faith, he's trying with electricity to prove that there is life after this one, because again, he has lost his faith. The only thing I'm not happy with this book is the ending of it. I think it finally felt flat after the constant build-up, and it's just a constant build-up throughout the whole course of the book, wondering what is going to ultimately happen. It actually ended a little bit differently than I had in my mind's eye. I think that way, in my personal opinion, it would have been a better ending, but the ending that Stephen King offered, it kind of fell flat for me. Of course, this is my opinion. Everything I say in today's video is my personal opinion, but still a very good book from start to finish, and not a very long book. But then after that, I went back to my personal collection of books I have in my personal possession at the time, and I picked up Desperation, again by Stephen King, and this is a massive book. And I guess back then I'd slept on this book for so long, and I can't believe I did for so long, because it is an amazing book. It kicks off strong and rocks and rolls all the way to the end. It never lets up. Very much a page turner for me, even though with how many pages this book has. I think it's right at 700 pages, and it takes place in the town of Desperation. It is a desert town that is a mining town, and the miners unfortunately unearth the tomb of the evil spirit of Tack, and he goes on a rampage in the town of Desperation, and he inhabits everyone's bodies, you know, and once he uses up one, he jumps to the other, and when the story picks up, he is in the body of the local cop, Collie, who in the movie, that the book is based on is actually played by Ron Perlman, and he's a fantastic actor, so I really wanted to read the book so I could see the movie. I always try to read the book before watching the movie just to see what kind of differences there is, but the book and the movie are both great, and I highly recommend them. But Collie, using his advantages of being a cop, is bringing people to the local jail cell that he has picked up and taken into custody on trumped up charges. Those people find a way to escape, and they band together to take down the evil spirit of Tack. And the book focuses on Tack and also on Collie, the cop, as I mentioned, and also young David, who has just found his faith in life, and he's in his first steps with his walk with faith, and he uses his prayer and everything to get through all of the bad situations in this book. And I thought it was a very good story to implement in here. And also Johnny, who is an author traveling cross country, he gets captured by Tack looking for new ideas for a new book. The only thing that I did not like about this book is at the very end of the book, Johnny done a sudden 180 and flipped. All throughout the course of the book, after the group had decided to fight Tack, he was the one that says, no way, I'm finding a car and I'm getting out of Dodge. You know, if I get out of town, he can't follow me. That was his mindset. But then in like the last 30 pages of the books, he's like, boom, no, I want to fight him. Let's do this, guys. And then they went to tackle Tack in the mines that were in the book. But a very good book, released in 1996. And then I followed that up with another book by Stephen King. The rest of them are Stephen King books, by the way, with The Regulators, also released in 1996. And I'm going to hold them up side by side here, because you can see once they are combined, they make kind of a small movie poster. As a matter of fact, both of these are first edition, nice pristine copies, and I've got them displayed in the bookcase in the Model Train / Nostalgia room. But Stephen King released this under the Richard Bachman banner. This is the alternate name he uses to publish some books. And the entire book is not even 400 pages long. Takes place in this single neighborhood. They have a reference drawing to kind of help you with your mind's eye get a lay of the land. And the only thing about this book that I didn't really like, I'm going to try to find it real quick, is the book is broken up with sections that have diary entries in this handwriting here. And for me, it was a little bit of a breakup from the flow of the book, you know, with the newspaper clippings and everything, you know, jumbled in with the course of the main story. For me personally, it just kind of broke up the flow of the book. It might not for you guys if you want to pick this up, but it was very trippy going to The Regulators from Desperation, because The Regulators is in a parallel universe, so you have the same exact names of the characters in The Regulators as you did in Desperation. And I kind of had to keep telling my mind, no, this was a different book, this is a new book, the characters are just the same. But it takes place in that neighborhood, as I said, and you have the character of young Seth, who Tack is trying to fully inhabit, but because young Seth has autism, Tack cannot fully grasp the mind of young Seth, and there's a tug-of-war aspect where Tack is trying to do bad things in the neighborhood, but Seth, because he has an autistic mind, is trying to pull and not let him be as evil as he can be. But he lives with his Aunt Audrey, and the whole neighborhood, those that are left after the rampage, band together to bring down Tack, and it did have a decent ending. So another real good book, and didn't take that long to read at all. But after that, I went to some old school Stephen King, and went to the local Barnes & Noble and used part of a gift card to get The Shining. Now, I did have the trade paperback version of The Shining in my personal collection, but the writing in it was so small. The print was so small, it was smaller than newspaper print, and I'm like, no way. So I went to Barnes & Noble and got one that had some larger print on it. It has the Overlook Hotel on the cover and Danny there screaming in the snow. But I read this book here, and then I followed that up with the movie. And let me tell you guys, for me personally, it was a slog to get through the book as well as the movie. Get me a sip of my nice cold water there. But the book here, it was so plodding for me, and it was released back in 1977, again, well before I thought of it, and Jaws was released in the same time frame. And I know it was one of Stephen King's earlier novels, and he was still developing as a writer there. But for me, you know the main character is going to snap and go on a rampage, but it was the build-up, the come down, the build-up, the come down, the build-up till he finally snapped. It just took too long for me personally to get through this book, and for him to get to the point where he snaps, it just took too long for me. Again, my personal opinion, excuse me there. but it focuses on Jack Torrance, who is the caretaker of the Overlook Hotel during the winter months, and they get snowbound with his little family of Wendy, his wife, and his young son Danny, who has the shining ability. He's able to mentally read people's thoughts, brainwaves, emotions, and see visions in a kind of way, and he sees all of the bad stuff that happened in the Overlook Hotel. But it does have a very big climax portion in the book as well as the movie adaptation, but again, they were very slow paced for me and it just didn't do it for me. But I'm happy to have read this book because again, I'm trying to read through the entire Stephen King collection, but I'm not reading them in release order as a lot of people like to do. I'm just hunting and pecking and just picking books at random that I want to read, you know. But read this book, I'm happy that I read it, and I understand the historical significance of the book in the Stephen King universe. And then the final book I want to talk about is the sequel, the follow-up to The Shining, and that is Dr. Sleep. And let me tell you, it was a night and day difference between The Shining and this book. I did not want this book to end. It was a real page-turner, and in my free time, I found myself going back to it just to read a few more pages to see where the story was going. But Danny, the little young boy from The Shining, has now grown up, and he has developed a dependency on drinking, and he has found out in the early pages that if he drinks a lot, it dulls The Shining. He does not want that ability. He does not want to read people's thoughts and emotions. But he finally hits rock bottom in the early pages of the book, and he gets on a bus, gets a one-way stop, and goes to New Hampshire, where he settles down. He joins the local AA, gets clean, gets completely sobered up, and of course because of that the shining ability comes back, but he gets a job at the local hospice home where through the shining ability he's able to help people who have reached the end cross over peacefully without any kind of terror or pain or anything. But throughout the course of the book, you're introduced to the True Knot, which is a group of semi-immortal troubadours that travel the country in a pack of RVs, and they're seeking out youth that has the shining ability because they capture them and they rob them of their ability to where they can keep living their semi-immortal life. So throughout the course of the book, you are introduced to young Abra, who is a main character in the book, and she finally figures out with her shining ability how to reach out to Dan, and they form a bond, and then they go to take down the True Knot. Night and day difference between this book and The Shining. It also has a movie tie-in, and both are very fantastic. But to get the full context of this book, you of course have to read and understand The Shining itself just to get all the references in this book. But again, night and day difference, and I highly recommend this book, and it's not that long at all. It's the most recent book that I have completed it a couple days after Christmas last year in 2024, and then I immediately dusted off and picked up another Stephen King book, and now I'm off to the races, and I am 3/4 of the way done with that book. But if you guys enjoyed this book, and after I read again 10 to 12 more books, again I'm not a speed reader, so these videos like this would not be like a monthly thing. You know, it takes me time to read the books because I'm not a speed reader. But if you guys enjoyed it and got inspired to maybe pick up a book along the way and go and try it for yourselves, please let me know down in the comments. I'm always happy to showcase parts of my life that is not about the woodworking aspect, but it just shows some of my other likes and interests. And now that I'm back into reading, I'm always on the hunt for a good book to read. You know, I'm really wanting to get out my old comic books from childhood and just catalog them, since I like collecting things so much, because that could be something. I could put a stack of comic books out in the workshop and read them while paint or stain is drying. You know, it's just an idea I have in my head. I have so many ideas that I want to properly bring to the platform, but I want to do them in the best possible way possible, if that makes any sense. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was nice to get out of the cold and get into the nice It was nice to get out of the cold of the workshop and get into the nice cozy nature of the model train / nostalgia room and talk about something else that I really enjoy. And I hope you guys have enjoyed the video as well. If you're new to the channel, hopefully you'll click that subscribe button and also follow me across all my social media feeds under the Artisan Pirate name. As always, links to contact me as well as all my social media feeds will always be linked down in the description box below these videos. That's about all for this one, and remember guys, if I can make it or do it, so can you. I'm the Artisan Pirate. Take care, and I'll see you guys real soon.